business organization syllabus has been revised very long back comparatively to other subjects, right? So 2023 October 18 was the last update done, and we are going to refer to the same one. And syllabus is not very difficult because they have restricted us to study about business organizations only. It's not about entirely business law, because if you see in bar exam preparations के लिए it will be helpful for you to know the basics, what sort of business organizations are there. But here when we say business organization, the key word is organization. तो कितने टाइप के ऑर्गेनाइजेशन होते हैं, what sort of businesses we conduct, we can conduct in different ways that we are learning in this particular subject. So we'll briefly go through the syllabus style and what is expected out of us, because once we know that, then our preparation for the exam will be much better. So, because syllabus content, if you see, it's not that hard to understand, because it's a substantive law. ऐसा कोई procedural वगैरह नहीं है, but we need to understand what is expected out of us from this subject by the NCA, and what sort of exam questions could come. हम उससे guess लगा सकते हैं. Then basic requirements for this exam is to succeed in this exam, student must demonstrate that they are acquainted with the three most common forms of organization used to carry on business. So there are three most common forms of organization. Can you get any one or two or all three?
It could be like we have here like public limited, private limited, partnership firms.
Yeah. So you told public limited, private limited, so that could come under corporations altogether. So in corporation, we have for-profit corporations, not-for-profit corporations. So like the different types will be there. Second, you named correctly partnership. So partnership again could be limited partnership, or limited liability partnerships, or just general partnerships also. So three types है. Limited partnerships and LLPs, limited liability partnerships, they are not the same, they are different. We'll see in our partnership wala chapter में. And one is sole proprietorship. अगर वो अकेला है, one person wants to start the business, he doesn't need any partners, right? So he can, and by way of sole proprietorship. So it will be usually one person, and very less regulations on that. On tax point of view also, he will be filing on his own personal tax. He'll show that this is the business income. And this sort of sole proprietorship को हमारे यहाँ सिर्फ proprietorship बोलते हैं in India. And these are the three common types of common forms of organization used to carry on the business. So these are the three. इसके अलावा भी you might have heard about joint ventures, co-ownership, then we have licenses, franchisees. But again, so they are subsections or subparts, we can say, subtypes, because again, those franchisees can be as partnerships, franchisees can be as corporations, right? So that's why basic three types are sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. And your entire syllabus is revolving around these three.
Okay.
So students must be able to explain the rules regarding the formation, organization, nature, and operation of these three forms of organization. So what we'll see in the coming chapters is that they have broken down these three into different chapters and sections, and jahan pe they have explained us the formation, how exactly a sole proprietorship is formed, how a partnership is formed, how a corporation is formed. So that we'll see every three types of formation देखेंगे, and how the organization is run, right? Organization कैसा होगा? How many people का जो भी है उसका roles क्या होंगे? Their responsibilities क्या होंगे? What is the nature? Different types have different nature. तो उसका differences भी हमें पता होना चाहिए. Because of course in the solicitors exam We do have to know the difference after becoming a solicitor. If you have this, knowledge, basic knowledge, हमें पता होना चाहिए कि difference क्या है, what are the tax implications, all those things, so that when a client comes to you with a question that मुझे business करना है, but I don't know which type would be, suitable for me. So you have to give a proper legal advice based on your, knowledge of how the different structures are built, they are formed, organization उनका nature क्या है, then we can help the client choose the best one. And operation of these three forms of business organization. So how the operation is conducted between within the corporation and within partnership and sole proprietorship. So this is the first thing that we should be able to explain the rules. So different rules will be there, will be learning in the syllabus. So we'll give importance for those rules. Whenever the rules come up, so we have to give importance to those rules regarding formation, organization, nature, operation of these three forms. Secondly, we should know the student should be able to explain the rules regarding the obligations of the partners to each other as well as to the creditors and others. So when we call it as partners, so definitely partnership may different partners will be there. So if there is a limited liability partnership or just limited partnership, yes. Limited partnership is a type of partnership where there will be one general partner and another one is a limited partner. So general partner will be liable to the unlimited extent and limited partner will be having a limited extent कि उतना जितना उन्होंने invest किया है. For example, he is holding 30% stake in a company. So then he will be only risking 30%. His personal assets will not be touched because he is a limited partner. Whereas general partner will be open for unlimited liability. His personal assets, house, car, everything could be impounded if they owe more than their company's partnerships assets. So these are the things, different rules will be there. So we'll be studying that as well. And that we should know because what will be their obligations that we could get as question in the exam, and they'll give fact pattern where we have to analyze, okay, who's what type of partner or what type of structure they have, how much they have put in, what is the risk or liability they have against each other, to each other, and or as well as towards creditors and others. Others में आते हैं clients or government, all those things. So we can see that. Then student also should be able to explain the rule regarding the circumstances in which the corporations are liable to the creditors and others. तो पार्टनर्स का भी पता होना चाहिए. Then comes to corporation. Corporation कैसे liable होते हैं to the creditor? To what extent the corporation is liable? When we see corporation is a legal entity. It's a separate legal entity. Unlike sole proprietorship, sole proprietorship means the person himself is the sole proprietorship, right? So there is no veil, corporate veil, lifting of corporate veil. You would have studied in university, right? So that is not there यहाँ पे because the person himself is the sole proprietorship. There is no difference. Tax के हिसाब से legally speaking, it is one and only. But corporation में there will be members, they are called as the owners of the corporation is called as shareholders, and the persons people who run it is called as directors. So there will be different people and shareholders. उनका क्या obligation होता है, कितना होता है, how much they are liable to the creditors, are they supposed to pay from their own pocket, like personal assets touch होगा वहां पे या नहीं? Mostly नहीं होता unless they have personally given any guarantee. So that is there if they are going above asset that the corporation is holding. And corporation, as I said, is a separate legal entity. इसके फायदे भी हैं, like it can sue and also be sued separately, and there is a tax filing which is different for the shareholders and corporation अपना खुद का जो प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस स्टेटमेंट देख के वो खुद टैक्स भरता है. And then we should also know about the obligations of the directors. As I was saying, the directors are the people who are running the company, and ऑफिसर्स टू शेयर होल्डर्स। तो इनका क्या ऑब्लिगेशन है, ऑब्लिगेशंस ऑफ शेयर होल्डर्स एंड ऑब्लिगेशंस ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स। तो विल सी दोस थिंग्स आल्सो आर इम्पोर्टेंट। तो हम theoretically इसको समझेंगे, then we'll apply that to practice in practice questions when we are solving that, and we'll apply that and we'll be able to find out कि okay, this person is director तो इनका इतना obligation है, so he is liable to do these things. So that is what you are writing in your answer. Then shareholder rights and remedies. Of course, shareholders have certain rights. So, if you own, 10% of share, 10 shares of a particular company, how much right you have? Do you have a right to dividend? Do you have certain, legal claims if the company does something bad, and of course, without your knowledge and आपको धोखा दे दिया, what are the remedies that as a shareholder you have? These are, overall, when you see it, these are very interesting because it's very practical and we see this in a to day life, right? So we see that. So it's a very structured syllabus comparatively for any additional subject that we have in NCA. I would suggest, business organization is easier than other ones in the structure point of view. And if अगर अच्छे से we find out कि what sort of questions come and we practice very well for it, answer writing practice करोगे, so then it will not be an issue for passing in the first attempt. They may also be able to apply these rules to the simple fact situation. So that's what I told. They'll give you a fact pattern situation, you will have to solve that. So this is the basic requirement that they expect out of the students of NCA for business organization. Method of evaluation, we know it's a 3 hour exam, open book exam, 100%, 100 marks रहता है. Then yeah. So we have to always, refer to the syllabus first because there will be some notes or, point important notes like that and all it will be there. So we have to refer to this. So please note that the corporate and partnership legislation may have been amended in some ways since the publication of the casebook and Van Duzer. So these are the reference books that they have, ये इनका book है that they are referring here, and the casebook is, where's casebook? Casebook, yeah, this one is the casebook. So these are the two materials that, of course, आपको refer करने की जरूरत नहीं है. I have referred it and prepared the material, so it all covers that. Students must review the relevant current provisions of the statutes of each for each section of the course. So sometimes in the syllabus you can see they are referring to certain legislations, partnership act, so and so section. So what we have done is that we have referred to the recent version of these sections, and that only we have mentioned in the material because it's an open book exam. You'll be referring to our material and you should have accurate information. Where the statute has been amended, the provisions of the amended statute prevail over any description of the law in the casebook or because ये देखो you can see this 2018 and 16 का है material, so that's why it will be outdated. कितना साल हुआ? There is almost 9 years here, right? So that is why whatever amendment has happened, so we have to refer to the latest material only. Students taking this examination for qualification in provinces other than Ontario should refer to the corresponding provisions of the local provincial legislation, wherever provisions of Ontario legislation are referred to. A table of concordance showing the provisions of each provincial corporate statute that correspond with the provisions of Business Canada Business Corporation Act is provided in the consolidated Canada Business Corporation Act and Regulations. So, जो comparison होता है, see, trade and commerce we learnt in constitutional law, right? Trade and commerce overall है तो फेडरल के पास under 91 clause 2 में, but within the province. So we had some case law in constitutional law subject where the subject matter of trade and commerce If it is international trade and commerce, if it is inter-provincial, two province के साथ है, so then they have to incorporate the business under the Canadian जो भी हमारा federal legislation होता है, that will apply to them. But when the person is doing business only within Ontario or only within British Columbia, so that time the provincial legislatures also have the power to make the laws on business, right? Trade and commerce में कर सकते हैं, but only applicable to the people who are running the business within the province. So that also one thing we had to understand, and accordingly we had to choose the legislation. Of course, for exam purpose, Ontario का जो भी यहाँ पे refer किया है उन्होंने, that is better to refer because now for this exam purpose, we don't have to choose a particular province because the person who is correcting your paper does not know which province you come from, right? So it is better to go with the mass or the majority of the people and not confuse the evaluator as well. So let's prepare with the Ontario legislation section. And if you're going to Ontario or you're in Ontario, then it's no problem. But if you would like to know still, you're preparing for British Columbia, Alberta, or any other province, then I would suggest referring to those materials also, like keep that sections, read that whenever, relevant sections or equivalent section, वहाँ पे कौन सा provision में आता है, because after all, you're going to practice in that province. So it will help you for that matter. But Girish, you're going to Ontario, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so no problem. So if you're already set on Ontario, so we can just refer to this Ontario laws itself. That will be again helpful. So these materials actually are very helpful for Ontario bar examinations also. That is solicitor's exam. We have one subject, business law, which is more or less this one. Plus they'll have little bit extra on Ontario laws, but it will be very helpful.
But just in case if the province is different, then only these few basic things will be different, या पूरा काफी ज्यादा changes रहेंगे इसमें?
Yeah, see, it depends because the province has that freedom to make different laws and rules. Na? So, for example, there is a point I can explain it with the requirement of residency to become directors in corporation ना, तो उसके लिए रेसिडेंसी की जरूरत है, लाइक सिटीजनशिप रिक्वायरमेंट या फिर पर्टिकुलर पीआर या फिर you should have Canadian citizenship. That sort of restriction is there in this one statute, हमारा federal statute, and some of the provinces have it. Even Ontario had it until a while ago, but in 2023, if I'm not wrong, 2017 to 23, that time, I'll tell you properly, but during that time, they changed that. They amended and they removed that requirement. So, like that, provinces have the liberty to change such things. So, it will be such drastic changes also sometimes. Okay. Okay. So, in the syllabus, we can see they have made it into, I think, 6 to 7 parts. Seven parts, yes. So they have made it into 7 parts. So if we consider, 7 chapters, uh, so सात ही chapters है यहाँ पे. Basically 7 topics is what you have to study, and in each topic, of course, they have made it into different parts. So we will look at it one by one. Case laws they have not listed in the syllabus copy, but they have, referred us to, check this case book. So from case book we have to take और textbook जो उन्होंने mention किया है वहां से हमको cases refer करके we have to write in our material, and of course you can refer to the material, it's all updated. So बिजनेस, इसमें फर्स्ट टॉपिक है इंट्रोडक्शन. बेसिकली इंट्रोडक्शन में दे आर टेकिंग यू थ्रू the brief introduction to different forms or methods of carrying on business. Okay, so the three major topics or three major forms that we saw, three major forms or types of business organization that we saw. So that we are going to, learn today in today's class. So what are these? How these are, formed, etc. Then other methods. Like I said, joint venture हो सकते हैं, licenses हो सकते हैं, और franchises हो सकता है. So all those things. So we are going to do this chapter today. So, so basically we are learning what is business and different basic forms of business organization. Then they go on explaining one by one separately, and in that also they have made a very good distinction. That's what I said. It's organized very well. Business organization subject very well organized. So partnership. What is a partnership? Then how does a partnership carry on a business? Relation between the partners and relation with the third parties. So as we saw earlier, so we know relation with our third parties is also important because वहां से भी question आ सकता है. And what do they owe each other and to the other people, and who are these other people and why do they owe them? So that also we'll see in this chapter. Dissolution of partnership. That another one thing good about corporation. Whereas in corporation being a separate legal entity, it does not depend on the life of shareholders. अगर एक shareholder मर गया या फिर that person want to sell off the share, nothing wrong with business. The corporation doesn't stop there. The corporation has a separate existence, so it's called as perpetual existence. Whereas partnership में ऐसा नहीं होता. Partnership में unless they have mentioned that particularly explicitly in their agreement, the partnership agreement होता है वहाँ पे, if they have not mentioned specifically, it will dissolve upon the death of the partner or if anybody wants to withdraw it. So that is also about the resolution of partnership. Then they have partnership agreements. Like I was saying, it is very important to write it down. What are the terms? Because laws are a bit lenient on this part. Partners can actually enter into different add different clauses to negate the law as well. So that we have seen in Ontario law particularly, it gives that leisure, or you can say very flexible in that part. And other relationships, this is joint venture, limited partnership, limited liability partnership. जैसे मैंने कहा कि these are two different things. Sounds very similar. Limited partnership is different from limited liability partnership. Then comes the corporation, which I think is forming the major part of your syllabus. The corporation and corporation ka hi different things they are they have made as a separate chapter, and seems to be more important topic out of all. Corporation may will see general information about introduction about corporation, constitutional matters, division of powers. We saw. I mean, I just briefly told you who has the power, what legislations are applicable to whom. That is basically from this division of power. We'll see charter rights. How the charter rights will be applicable to a corporation. Incorporation का process क्या है? This is important. Incorporation process. How does a corporation comes into existence, and how many people are required? What is the procedure for that? That we see. Then any statutory references: Canadian Business Corporation Act and Ontario Business Corporation Act. So this is the provincial law. This is the statute, that is federal law. Function and corporate function of corporate law. How does it function? Then we also see the operation of corporate law rules and different scales. So this is also important because they have mentioned in the beginning that how the operation of the corporation runs. That also they could ask any related topic. यहाँ से भी उठा के क्वेश्चन पूछ सकते हैं. Then corporate and securities law. What is the connection between these two? Very brief यहाँ पे will be touching upon that as well, because usually corporate have a lot of security issues, right? So security issues in the sense, confidentiality issues, uh, information का available होना, information leak ना होना, all those things also, so security laws also they have to comply with. Nature of the corporation. Again, we see this in the beginning that how it is a separate existence. And there is a limited liability for the shareholders. वो लोग fully personally liable नहीं होते. Disregard of corporate legal personality. Even though shareholder के बदलने से या फिर shareholder if he dies, the corporation doesn't dissolve on its own, but it can also be, disregarded. So how does that happen? It can be dissolved. It can be, companies बंद होते हुए हमने देखा है, right? So it can happen, but either by way of, resolution of all the directors or major shareholders, we can say, or by way of statute, if it is violating any statute and by law it has to be dissolved, then it could happen, or it could also happen by the judgment. कोर्ट का कोई जजमेंट आए कि इस कंपनी को बंद कर दो, so that can also happen. So then we'll refer to such sections. Then yes, incorporation process considerations, क्या क्या करना चाहिए, what should be considered. There are a lot of sections that we have to study with respect to that part. Very important है ये वाला chapter. Then corporate names, how to name. Even sole proprietor name also. There is a Business Names Act section here. Yeah. Partnership, no, sorry. So Business Names Act, even for sole proprietorship also, these rules, section 2, 6, 7 and 10 basically talks about कैसे नाम रखा जाए, right? So business का नाम कितना different या similar हो सकता है, all those things also they mention. There is a partnership act as well in Ontario, so that will also be applicable. Then we have the corporate in action. What is the liability in action? मतलब ये केस का है action suit. So corporate अगर इसमें है, केस में है, तो liability of the corporation for crimes and torts. Of course we know civil actions will be there on the side, but what about crime? Corporate का क्या responsibility होता है if the one of the director is committing a crime, if the director or shareholder is committing offense under crime, criminal law या फिर torts. So that also we will be studying, which is important for us lawyers to know. Then we have corporate agency, liability of the corporation in the contract. So corporate can enter into any agreement or contract in its own name, right? But there will be always a authorized signatory. So authorized signatory will be chosen by the board of directors. So they will choose one person, and that person, 1 or 2 person जो भी है, they will sign. But who will be liable? They personally are not liable. The corporate is liable for anything that is written in that particular contract. So that will be, that has to fulfill those liabilities. शेयर्स एंड शेयर होल्डर, शेयर्स क्या होते हैं, शेयर होल्डर्स कौन होते हैं, what are their characteristics of shares. Then we will also see certain rights of theirs. Yeah, so different topics related to shares, we'll see how to repurchase, redemption कैसे होता है, issuing कैसे होता है, all those things we'll see in that chapter. Then in topic 4, it talks about management and control of the corporation, the basic legal frameworks. So यहाँ पे again we are seeing the overall structure. कि shareholders will be there, directors will be there, and officers also will be there. So we'll see each person या फिर each character का role क्या है, and what are they, how much they are liable for the each work whatever they are doing, and towards the corporation, how much they are liable, what are their duties and responsibilities, and how do they exercise those powers. So that also we'll see very detailed है. So we'll get a very good picture about how business is run in Canada. Then directors and how they exercise their power. So of course, as we saw, they have those rights and powers. तो शेयर होल्डर्स कैसे उसको एक्सरसाइज करेंगे, डायरेक्टर्स कैसे एक्सरसाइज करेंगे, देन डायरेक्टर्स मीटिंग क्या होता है, हु आर द ऑफिसर्स एंड हाउ important they are, right? So chief operating officers, like that and we here, no? So who are they, how do they work, how are they getting the delegated work, all those things we'll see. And remuneration, indemnification, indemnity, कितना indemnify कर रहे हैं वो लोग to for the company's work, that also we'll see. And how much they are paid, how the remuneration may you can see for people, they get dividend, they get salary, so different forms of remuneration will be there, that also we'll see. Shareholders agreement and unanimous shareholders agreement. So here we'll see if it is, one shareholders agreement separate or if it is unanimous. सारे shareholders का एक agreement रहेगा. उसमें बहुत सारी चीजें लिखा होगा which is general for everyone. Or somebody would have, 45 or like 51%, sorry 51 or 59% जो भी major shareholder है उनके separate भी agreement हो सकता है. Having, separate obligations, rights and duties. Now, can the corporate change its name or can the corporate change its structure? Yes, of course. But how they can do it? By amendment to its articles, articles of incorporation or bylaws, and changes to stated capital. जो capital उन्होंने पहले decide किया था, if it is $1 million, later they want to change it to 2.5, they can do it. So amendment can be done, but what and all needs to be amended, that is what we are learning. Continuation under the law of another jurisdiction. So if they want to continue in another jurisdiction, pehle to they had registered under Ontario legislation, right? So if they want to, open another branch or like another outlet or something in another province, so then what happens? Another jurisdiction के लिए क्या क्या करना पड़ता है? If they are amalgamating with another corporation, so वो भी हम देखेंगे. Arrangements and reorganizations, so basically these are the different changes that is happening to one corporation. Sales of all or substantially all of a corporation's assets. So if such assets are put up on sale, so how it's done, basic information hoga, not very detailed this one, but basic information on that. Going private transactions, how they can do private transactions, termination of the corporation's existence in entirety. Like I was saying, in by way of three things: court order, or the board of directors resolution, or by way of statute. They can do that. Sixth one is directors and officers' duties. तो उनका powers तो बोले. Now let us talk about their duties. What are their fiduciary duties? And competition है, takeover bids होते हैं. So in different, basically in different duty they have to comply with those. अगर नहीं करेंगे तो उनको sanction हो सकता है क्या? Punishment होगा. Yes. So sanction by shareholders of fiduciary breach. So that also will be there. They have a certain duty of care that they have to, when wherever the fiduciary duty is put upon anyone in any role, so their duty of care automatically kicks in. So that also we'll see. Then statutory duties and operation liability of corporate managers for tort. So this is in connection with the other chapter where tort में क्या उनका liability है. So we'll do that. Finally, this is again very important. It's a fact pattern question they will definitely ask. Shareholder remedies. So we have an introduction, personal action. Can they file any, suit personally as a shareholder, and how? For what reason? Like grounds क्या होते हैं? We'll see derivative actions on behalf of the corporation. In case if they want to represent the corporation and file a suit, how they can do that? What is oppression? Then compliance and restraining orders, how they can get fees. Rectification of corporation record. So अगर record ठीक नहीं है उसको rectify कर सकते हैं क्या? And how to do it? And if any problem is going on, investigations कैसे होता है? Internal investigation, external investigation, how it is conducted. That we'll see. Then corporate purchase of shares of dissenting shareholder. So this will be if the corporate wants to purchase the share of somebody who's going, right, any shareholder, or like the buyback policy and all, do they have it? How can they actually put it in their articles of incorporation, or you can say shareholders agreement, so where it will be mentioned. Winding up and dissolution, so final winding up भी कर सकते हैं, dissolution भी कर सकते हैं of a corporation. But how does it happen? Can a shareholder ask for it? So basically, these are the entire syllabus concepts. So after going through this, how do you feel about the subject?
It overall looks very open, and I think the overview एक बिजनेस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन सारे टाइप का जो है वो थ्रू से करना पड़ेगा.
Hmm.
एंड आई थिंक इसमें डिटेल्स भी काफी इम्पोर्टेंट हैं, जैसे पार्टनरशिप्स का वो रेजोल्यूशन होगा एंड ऑल द स्मॉल स्मॉल पार्ट्स ऑफ इट. So
Hmm.
I think
Yes.
detailed है, but
Hmm.
it will be interesting.
Yeah, very practical. And is this the first time you're checking out the entire syllabus at once?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's why always for the first class I go through entire syllabus or the official document में, ताकि we don't leave off anything, any guidance that they have given us, any hint that they given us, gave for for our
One question,
preparation.
जैसे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में भी है कि डिवीजन ऑफ पावर इज द मैक्सिमम नंबर्स पार्ट ऑफ द
Hmm.
एग्जाम,
Hmm.
चार्टर एंड एबोरिजिनल लेस नंबर्स. तो इसके अंदर बिजनेस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में वो कैसे वो रहेगा कि क्वेश्चन मैक्सिमम नंबर्स के कौन से टॉपिक से आने.
Hmm. Yeah, so that is the second part. We are going to look at, sample exam paper. So sample exam dekhte hi, we'll get an idea that, how many questions would come typically. And definitely this is not like admin or something. A question nahi aayega. Definitely more questions will come. Your minimum of, 4 questions would come, 4 to 5 questions would come. And in this, I would see that, based on the previous uh, sample papers so we have gone through, we came to conclusion that shareholders का जो part है, seventh chapter, that is more important, and corporation part. अगर आप देखते हो कि in constitutional law we saw the first 4 chapters not so important, right? So उसके बाद आया division of powers, very important. Then abolition, then charters. Like that only here when we see divisions, तो here very very important corporation part. तो corporation का पूरा आपको इतना रट्टा मार के पता होना चाहिए, in my opinion. So we'll look at,
Okay.
the structure. Of course, we're not going to go in detail because we wouldn't be able to understand at this point. So we are going to just see कि what sort of question will come, कि fact pattern कितना लंबा होता है, how would it be structured, how many marks for that will be given, right? So the first question they have shown is 25 marks ka, and you can see the full fact they have mentioned, and they also added advertisement in the local. Yeah. So advertisement looks like this, following form. So what was the advertisement? वो भी उन्होंने दिया है. Then finally they are asking the question, that is assuming that the reason that the building collapsed is that Sheila was negligent in designing the building and is only liable to Luke for Sheila's negligence. So basically, यहाँ पे different parties है. So we'll have to see who's Sheila and who's O'Neill. Is O'Neill liable to Luke for Luke seems to be the person in agreed party here, and Sheila is the designer, right? So why is O'Neill liable for Sheila's negligence? So is it a partnership? Is it a sole proprietorship? यहाँ पे दिखेगा हमें, right? So which, because their liability we saw in the syllabus, right? So partners hai, so they are liable for each other's action or not. That also we'll be learning. Liable for third person's action or not. Is it a, यहाँ पे दिख रहा है कि O'Neill Maharaj has been carrying on sole proprietorship business as an architect since 1990. Sheila became qualified as an architect in 2008 and uh, known her as following a family person. Hmm. Discussed the possibility of carrying on the business in a partnership, but instead decided to practice as sole practitioners working in the same location, with O'Neill referring the work to Sheila whenever he could, and sharing the common costs. Both entered into a 10-year lease for the second floor of the local building. हाँ, but do you see, यहीं पे अभी whatever basic knowledge we have, we can see that they're running as two different sole proprietors, sole
Yeah.
practitioners. They are not partners. So, general understanding, abhi, without even studying the entire syllabus, what you will say? Is O'Neill liable for Sheila's negligence?
No.
No, unless they have, entered into a partnership, unless they have, have that arrangement. Generally, no. But we'll see if there is any, unless, but all those things will come, no, in law. So we'll see. So this sort of, it doesn't sound very horrible or, difficult form of question, right? Very understandable, easy to understand. That's what I said. Like this subject is very
Yeah.
practical. You can imagine like the parties. You can imagine what is
Yeah.
going on. So it's easy to understand. So this is 125 marks question and यहाँ पे आंसर क्या है? नेग्लिजेंस की वजह से each other पे वो liable है कि नहीं? For another person's act, are you liable as a sole practitioner? And what is the relationship of the person who's being asked to be liable to the person who committed the offense? तो वो देखना पड़ेगा. What is the relationship? तो as we are not doing criminal law or tort यहाँ पे तो negligence का डिटेल में नहीं जाना. We have to go between the relationship, business relationship क्या है? What is the thing that is tying them up together and how much O'Neill is liable? Right, I might refer your business and client मेरे वजह से आपके यहाँ आया होगा, but if you do something wrong, then you are liable personally, right? Your company or you are liable. They should not come and ask me. But if I'm, sharing the profit with you, then could be. If we have an arrangement of, doing 50-50, I'm taking some referral that is separate, referral fee is separate. But what if I'm taking profit? Then there is a nature which looks like we are partners. Partners नहीं है तो profit क्यों देंगे, right? So that
Yeah.
also could be there. So we have to see the parties' relationship in the business law sense. Then there is a second question for 35 marks. So as you can see, in corporation, it is a corporation. Corporation के लिए ज़्यादा marks है उसके related. So corporation है, it is incorporated under so and so. So Canada Business Act मतलब ये फेडरल कॉर्पोरेशन फेडरल लॉ के अंदर इनकॉर्पोरेट किया हुआ है. So it is a consulting business. The corporation has only one class of shares, and the sole shareholder was Inger. She held 100 shares and was the sole director. So it was one person company sort of structure it is there. So we'll
Yeah.
see Royal Consulting. ठीक है. Arif is a friend of Inger. We'll come to the final question. Morris refused to agree the issuance of any shares to Arif. Arif is extremely frustrated by the refusal of Inger, Morris, and Royal to do anything about the debt that the corporation owes him. See, corporation owes certain debt to this person, Arif, right? And Arif को अभी shares भी नहीं मिल रहे हैं, वो भी refuse हो गया है. And in the course of his discussion with Inger, he finds out that the truck sale and about the truck sale and becomes even more frustrated. He comes to you for advice. तो अभी इनको क्या राइट्स है, इनको क्या राइट्स है, आरिफ का क्या राइट्स है, वो देखने के लिए we'll have to see the relationship of him with the people in the company or with the entire basically company के साथ क्या relationship है, how much debt he has given, in what form he has given, why do they owe him whatever they owe him, and we have to see कि how will you advise him, you have to know his rights. तो उसका पोजीशन देखने के बाद यू विल फिगर आउट सिलेबस में कौन सा पार्ट पे है, एंड देन यू विल सी, रेफर टू द मटेरियल एंड यू विल सी व्हाट आर हिज राइट्स. and what are his remedies that he have. He doesn't have any issue, shares there. तो शेयर होल्डर है या नहीं, वो अभी अभी तक तो नहीं. तो we'll have to see, is he an officer, is he a third party. तो उसको पहले पोजिशनिंग करना होगा. Then he will see what are his rights under the material and he can answer that. Okay. So discuss, so इसका question है, discuss all the actions that Arif can take to seek relief in connection with the situation described above. Be sure to discuss the procedural steps required to be taken by Arif and the relief that he may claim and any arguments that could be made against Arif's position also. So सो फाइनली जो यहाँ पे उन्होंने ये बोला कि नॉट जस्ट हिज साइड, you have to also see कि what could be the argument that could be done against him. Simply saying now without much knowledge of the facts, I can say that he is not a shareholder yet. तो उनका तो राइट उन पे नहीं है. तो what are his restrictions also, right? तो उसको positioning करेंगे, then we'll know his right, his restrictions, what are the restrictions that could, disregard his any claim. तो वो भी देखेंगे. So this is how you will write 35 marks का. So as I said, the third part जो कॉर्पोरेशन का पार्ट है, वहां से लंबा क्वेश्चन ऐसे आ सकता है, because here we have to write both sides, so it will take time. So that's why
Yeah.
more marks. Then comes 40 marks का. अगेन शेयर होल्डर आया, कंपनी से ही आया है, ये भी कॉर्पोरेशन साइड से ही आया है. Then 40 marks is there. So the majority shareholder, president and director of facto incorporation or corporation incorporated under federal law. The other shares of are held by 20 so and so incorporated employees. Okay, so we'll come to the final question. Jody is a long-time client of the law firm at which you are an associate. At her request, you meet with her to provide advice regarding whether she should join the board or not. Yeah, so this is what she is asking your advice on. She is concerned about her liabilities as a director in general and about what would be her responsibility in relation to the proposed purchase of the assets of this by another company. So another company जब purchase करेगा इसके asset को, तो उनका responsibility क्या होगा. So again, this is corporation का, वहां से he है, and as a director, what would be her role and what would be her responsibility and liability, that will be same. So here the question is divided into two, 20 marks के लिए for वही question का. What are the liability risks to which Jody would be exposed as a director, both in general and in the circumstances described. तो जनरल में क्या क्या है वो हम नोट से थियोरेटिकल नॉलेज लिख सकते हैं थोड़ा शॉर्ट में. देन टू द पर्टिकुलरली फॉर द सर्कमस्टेंस, जो एसेट सेल करते वक्त क्या होता है, वी जस्ट सॉ दैट इन द सिलेबस, राइट. तो व्हेन द परचेजिंग ऑफ एसेट्स आर गोइंग ऑन, तो क्या होगा. Then, what strategies Jody might adopt to reduce or manage these risks? तो वो भी हमें उनको लिखना है. So this is again theoretical part है. So this is a sample paper in our NCA website. So seems, how does it seem? Do you feel like it is very difficult or moderate or easy?
I think it's moderate, not very easy, just because काफी इसको शायद proper relationships of people in the question वो समझना और exactly क्या क्या point के ऊपर discuss करना है. But not difficult. It
Yeah.
doesn't look like very difficult.
Yeah, it is moderate. I would agree with that assessment actually, because see why people get confused and where they get confused, I'll tell you. It's in the fact. Facts इतना लंबा होता है कभी कभी, they'll miss up on one point, right? So first हमें what type of organization it is वो फाइंड करना है. देन डिफरेंट कैरेक्टर्स जो उन्होंने अलग अलग नाम दिया, ओनील, शीला, आरिफ, लूक, जो भी है, तो वो उनका कैरेक्टर्स को हमें प्रॉपरली हमें माइंड में एस्टैब्लिश करना है. बिकॉज सी आंसर राइटिंग के लिए इस सब्जेक्ट में ज्यादा टाइम नहीं लगेगा, बट यू नीड टाइम टू रीड द क्वेश्चन, यू नीड टाइम टू मेक proper connections and points कि हमें इसका आंसर like this I will refer to this chapter, I'll refer to this material. कोई example आपके already relatable, mostly relatable, of course exact वाला question बहुत कम आता है या तो नहीं आता. तो what you can do is 70% या 60% relatable sample answer if I had given you, तो वहां से आप IRAC में refer कर सकते हो. So like that, you can, save your time, some of your time for writing, but for understanding the question, because question is going to be completely new. It's not going to be same as this. So that is where you're going to spend the most of time during the exam. Understand the question. Sare questions, one common thing that we can see is very long fact pattern, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they are all different facts for each question because दूसरे
Hmm.
एग्जाम में जैसा एक फैक्ट है उसी पे तीन क्वेश्चंस हैं तो
Yeah. Small one like that, it's not there. Only on the fourth one we saw. So that is also a possibility. So sample exam they give because for us to understand what sort of question will come. So we didn't see any theory question. So let us not worry about that. But fact pattern ही आएगा even in the syllabus and as well as in the sample paper also we saw only fact pattern importance. So that only we will refer to. Then we have to also consider, answer structure. So यहाँ पे IRAC structure fits very well than traditional essay format or something. So यहाँ पे भी IRAC structure would be better because you will be raising a proper issue. And in the fourth question, as I was saying, they have divided into two different questions, right? So those two issues you can make it into one IRAC only. You don't have to again make it into two because both are going in the same direction. Both are talking about, what are her rights and liabilities, then what are the strategies that she can take as a director. So that at the end, half part ke baad you can make that distinction and write that separately. You don't have to make two IRACs just because they ask 20 marks ka do. So like that we have to, strategy karna padega to save time. Then yeah. So we'll start with today's chapter. It's a very small chapter because it's a basic introduction है. So that's why I wanted to do not just first chapter करके हम 15 मिनट में भी हो सकता था. But very important to go through the syllabus and sample paper so that we know now what to expect from the entire syllabus or course.
yeah.
Right. So chapter one is introduction to business organization. So generally, what is business? Business is basically business refers to an organization engaged in activities that are commercial, industrial, or professional in nature. तो या तो वो प्रोफेशनल हो सकता है लाइक लॉ फर्म में प्रोफेशनल है या प्रोफेशनल सीए, so they also have a sort of business organization. और इंडस्ट्रियल हो सकता है, कमर्शियल चीजें हो सकती है. तो these could be different nature, but these are the business, these are the organization engaged in activities that are either commercial, industrial, or professional in nature. So this is what a general or definition of business. It can operate for profit or as not for profit entity with charitable or social purposes as well. So just because it's a company, incorporated company hai, doesn't mean it is always for profit. There are, sole proprietorship, there are partnerships, LLPs doing charitable work. There are corporations doing charitable work. So that also will be seen, which sort of usually charitable work के लिए corporation choose करते हैं. Can you guess why?
Yeah.
Can you guess why?
Uh,
What would be the reason?
reason for
Reason for choosing corporation as a type of business organization for charity work rather than having sole proprietorship या फिर partnership. Mostly वो लोग.
maybe because then if it's a corporation then the whole responsibility is not on any one person individually
So that
and it,
even if that person does not continue to exist, तो उनको कुछ हो गया फिर भी the charitable work will continue. So that
yeah, yeah,
perpetual, so that is called as perpetual existence quality of the corporation. So that is actually helping in choosing, charitable अगर करना है तो most of the people they do trust and all those things incorporate करते हैं, right? So that's why. There are three main forms of business structure, like we saw: sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. Partnerships again can be categorized into further general partnership, या फिर limited partnership, या फिर limited liability partnership. So this is the general information about what is a business, what type का हो सकता है, for profit or not for profit entity, and it could also be in three different forms: sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation. And again, partnerships are categorized into general partnership, limited partnership, and limited liability partnership. So let us see one by one. What is a sole proprietorship? This is very simple and oldest type of business structure. मैं अकेली हूँ, मुझे business करना है. Mine is sole proprietorship. A sole proprietorship is owned and operated by a single individual who makes all the key decisions and bears full responsibility for that business. So there is no legal distinction between that owner and the business, meaning that they share the same identity under the law. As I said, there is no corporate veil, lifting of corporate veil. Here, there is no other person, one person, business, right? So this is sole proprietorship. There is only one person who is deciding, taking all the decisions, bearing all the full responsibility of the business. There is no difference or distinction between the owner and the business. So this structure is attractive because it is straightforward to set up, easy to set up, किसी और पे depend होने की जरूरत नहीं है, and it is inexpensive to operate as well because incorporate करने की झंझट नहीं होती यहाँ पे, taxation high नहीं होता. So for many reasons, it is very inexpensive comparative to partnership, and more difference is there when it compares to corporation and such. And easy to dissolve also. वो खुद बॉस है, कभी भी चाहे तो दुकान बंद कर सकता है. So, additionally, under Ontario's Business Names Act, a sole proprietor using their own name is not required to register the business name. So, as I was saying, BNA Act जो है यहाँ पे, BNA Act is OBNA, that is Ontario's Business Names Act. So here, what it is? Now I am Vidya. So Vidya incorporation करके मुझे अगर नाम डालना है, तो I can use that. I don't have to register. But if I am using any other name, then I have to register that particular name. जैसे कि हमारा NCA में कीजिए, I have to register that name, right? So that I have. So then, if we are using our own name, then we don't have to register that for sole proprietorship. Then, despite its simplicity, this form of business carries significant risk also. Why? What is the risk here? वो तो है अकेला ना, वो खुद कर सकता है ना. But यहाँ पे एक significant risk ये है कि that person or owner is personally liable for all the debts and obligation incurred by the business. तो business का जितना भी risk है उसका personal life पे भी effect पड़ेगा, personal finance पे effect पड़ेगा. So all the debts and everything of the business, he is you know, bearing that on him. This lack of separation can expose personal assets to creditors. So when for his business, if he's taking some money from the creditors, bank or something, then they can impound his personal assets like his car, his house or anything, which is very risky. Furthermore, it may be challenging for sole proprietors to secure loans or other forms of financing due to limited credibility of the structure because वो अकेला है. So, the business or like creditors also look down upon them. So, it could raise challenges in raising any form of financing from third party. But what are the advantages? Advantages are easy and cost-effective setup है, flexibility in management and operations because one person company, one person organization, so easy to do. Simplified dissolution process. कल को उठ के decide किया कि अभी तो नहीं करना मुझे business, so he can do that unless he has some dues owing to someone, so he has to fulfill that first. देन डिसएडवांटेज है कि अनलिमिटेड पर्सनल लायबिलिटी, लिमिटेड एक्सेस टू फाइनेंशियल रिसोर्सेज, देन नो डिस्टिंक्शन बिटवीन पर्सनल एंड बिजनेस एसेट्स, which is again going back to this point, unlimited personal liability आएगा. Then briefly we'll see what is partnership. Partnership involve two or more individuals. पार्टनर, पार्टनर्स हम किसको बोलते हैं? दो लोग होते हैं तो पार्टनर्स बोलते हैं, दो या तीन, कितना भी हो सकते हैं, बट पार्टनरशिप इन्वॉल्व मोर देन मिनिमम टू पीपल. So partnership involves two or more individuals, but they have to work together. Not like, one person is having another person as an employee. No, that is not partnership. They have to work together to run the business with the goal of generating profit. So this has to happen, then that is called as partnership. This structure allows for a shared responsibility and flexibility in managing the business. Partnerships are relatively easy to establish and dissolve, though they require adherence to legal requirements such as registration under the Business Names Act. यहाँ पे करना पड़ेगा रजिस्ट्रेशन. नो एक्सक्यूज एज आप खुद का नाम यूज कर रहे हो, नहीं हो सकता. दोनों का नाम जोड़ के पार्टनरशिप करके बोल के नहीं कर सकते, because the law says that you have to register the partnership. Notifying the creditors when the partner leaves, that is also one of the responsibilities that they have. अगर चार पार्टनर्स थे, one person is leaving and they're still carrying on, they can do it in the partnership agreement. They have to specifically mention it. Then they have to notify to the creditors. That is one of the headache they have to do. Then, as I said, there are three types: limited liability partnerships, LLPs, limited partnerships, and general partnerships. Now, general partnerships have drawback of unlimited liability. What is the difference between these two? Is in liability. Okay, कौन कितना responsible है for the debts or any liabilities. तो उसी पे differences है. So you can see, general partnership have unlimited liability, same like sole proprietorship. Even though यहाँ पे बहुत सारे partners है, more than two people है या two people or more than two people है, it is spread, right? अगर $50,000 is the loan, sole proprietor पे तो अकेले पे होता, यहाँ पे दो लोग हैं तो 25 है, but still that is also unlimited liability. All of their personal assets will be, at risk. That is generally partnership. But if they register it as limited liability partnership, then that offers why LLPs are so, famous. We can see more of LLPs around us because
Yeah.
LLP में लिमिटेड लायबिलिटी, नाम में ही लिमिटेड लायबिलिटी, उनको इतना ही लायबिलिटी है जितना उन्होंने मनी इन्वेस्ट किया है. Whereas in the other one है सिर्फ लिमिटेड लायबिलिटी, नाम है उसका लिमिटेड लायबिलिटी पार्टनरशिप नहीं, सिर्फ लिमिटेड पार्टनरशिप, जहां पे there will be two people, two types of partners. Types of partners will be, one will be general partner who has, जैसे हमने यहाँ पे देखा, जनरल पार्टनर हैव अनलिमिटेड लायबिलिटी. देन सेकेंड पर्सन लिमिटेड पार्टनर, जैसे नाम बोलता है लिमिटेड पार्टनर, यहाँ पे विल हैव लिमिटेड लायबिलिटी. So this is not very much famous or something, but ये भी ये वाले टाइप के भी यूज होते थे पहले, but if the choice is given nowadays, everybody would take up LLPs, right? So rather than other things, exposing themselves to personal liability. So those are the different types of partnership. Of course, we are going to explain that different types of obligation, risks, etc. in the separate chapter. तो कॉर्पोरेशन का इंट्रोडक्शन देख लेते हैं. Why is corporation also so famous or like widely approached as a form of business organization? So corporations are created under laws such as Canadian Business Corporation Act or equivalent provincial statute. जैसे हमने देखा ऑन्टारियो के लिए ऑन्टारियो कैनेडा बिजनेस कॉर्पोरेशन एक्ट, ओसीबी, ओसीबीसी, या फिर यहाँ पे सीबीसीए, राइट? So like that, we have equivalent provincial statute as well. The primary feature that distinguishes a corporation from other business structure is the recognition as a separate legal entity. This is something that is unique from partnership or as a sole proprietorship. So here it has a separate legal entity. This means that corporation has its own legal identity independent of its shareholders, directors or officers. जो भी उन पे people होते हैं, that is shareholders or in the way of directors or officers will be related to that, but they don't have the same identity as they themselves, and the corporation is totally separate. This separation provides numerous benefits. Now, what are the benefits? Benefits including the ability to sue and be sued in its own name. This is, elementary school mein padha tha, aisa lagta hai, right? So then entering into contract independently, very basic, perpetual existence. Now this one is, kind of important because that being the reason for many of them choosing for corporation is perpetual existence regardless of changes in ownership or management. Limited liability for shareholders. This is again very important. Limited liability for shareholders milega, then protecting their personal assets. So this is another reason. These are the two main reasons that is that why they are choosing the corporation over other structures. While corporations enjoy easier access to capital and tax advantages, they face higher administrative costs and obligations such as filing annual returns and holding regular meetings. Incorporation also requires compliance with statutory procedures and regulations. तो यहाँ पे इतना easy भी नहीं है, all green नहीं है, यहाँ पे red भी है. What is that? So यहाँ पे it is easier to access capital and tax advantages भी मिलेगा. That is green, good thing. But it faces higher expense, higher administrative cost. बहुत सारे लोग रखना पड़ेगा for work and the obligations and filing taxes, रिटर्न, ये तीन सब कुछ करना पड़ेगा उसको खुद से ही. And incorporation also requires compliance with the statutory procedures and regulations. तो if they say that यही rule है तो वही rule है. जैसे पार्टनरशिप में वैसा नहीं होता. Even though partnership act is there, but lot of the rules can be negated in the contract. But यहाँ पे वो liberty नहीं है. Now, other than that, also we can see different forms of, other methods of carrying on business. We'll go through it very briefly, then we are done with this chapter. Unique corporation. Examples include banks governed by the Federal Bank Act and insurance companies regulated under the Insurance Act. So they are unique corporation. They are set out for, वो ऐसा प्रॉफिट है ऑफ कोर्स बैंक्स आल्सो लुक आफ्टर देयर प्रॉफिट राइट. उनका भी बोर्ड आता है ना, इस साल ये वाला बैंक सबसे ऊपर है इन जनरेटिंग प्रॉफिट. तो वो भी होता है बट दे आर done in a unique way, right? It is different from our Tata or Birla or something like that. So they are different from that, right? So banks are of a different nature. Insurance companies are of a different nature. Of course, they are also for profit only, more than other companies. But yeah, they are called as unique corporation. उनका purpose अलग होता है, उनका structure अलग होता है, all those things. Then, as I was saying, joint venture is also something. But joint venture में एक चीज हम देख सकते हैं. Joint venture and partnership are different because even though यहाँ पे भी two or more people are pooling resources for a specific goal, but यहाँ पे क्या होता है, it is for a particular time period. यहाँ पे एक लिमिटेड टाइम रहता है कि मी एंड यू आर कोलैबोरेटिंग फॉर बिजनेस लॉ एग्जाम प्रिपरेशन, राइट? तो यहाँ पे लिमिटेड पीरियड है. आफ्टर दैट you pass your exam, you move on with your life, you teach other students, we are done, right? So this is joint venture, like for a particular purpose such as research and development. तो वो joint venture के लिए निकलते हैं. तो that we can say is project, collaborative project, rather than having a separate. It also can be for a profit, like two friends starting a small workshop or something for a very limited time, like summer time. अभी आजकल बच्चे क्या करते हैं, lemonade selling is very famous, no, to by the children on the roadside during summers. So that you can say, as a joint venture दिमाग में रख सकते हैं. That is not planned for a very long, prolonged period or something. अगर ऐसा हुआ prolonged period के लिए, then it is called as partnership. Then strategic alliance also, agreements between independent entities to achieve mutual objectives without creating separate legal entities. So strategic alliances, दो तीन कंपनियां मिलके, you know, आजकल तो influencers का जमाना है, तो collaborations you might have heard, right? तो strategic alliance also देखिए, so that for this purpose we'll get together and we'll do certain things, but they are together, they are not forming a separate entity, but independently they are different entities and they have their own objects, but for something they might come together. It also, you can call it as a project. Then we have licensing agreements. Usually this is referred for IP. अगर किसी का for example Microsoft Word I'm using, right? So I've taken the license, I've paid the money, I've taken the permission, and then I'm using the Microsoft Word. So इसमें और franchising में difference ये है कि franchising में the person who is the main or person who has invented that thing, no, वो बार बार टांग अड़ाएगा. लाइसेंसिंग एग्रीमेंट्स में नहीं अड़ाएगा, बिकॉज वी हैव पेड, वी हैव टेकन, वी आर टेकिंग इट फॉर यूजिंग दैट आइटम. बट फ्रेंचाइजिंग में इफ यू सी मैकडोनल्ड और समथिंग जैसे KFC, तो उनका जो इंग्रेडिएंट्स है, रेसिपीज है, गेटिंग द आइटम्स फ्रॉम देम ओनली, राइट? सो वी कांट प्रिपेयर. अगर मैं फ्रेंचाइजी लेती हूँ तो आई कांट प्रिपेयर माई ओन चिकन फ्राई एंड आई कांट सेल इट अंडर द KFC नेम. to follow their rules. They will do their audit, they'll do the checking, right? उनका स्टैंडर्ड के हिसाब से करना पड़ेगा फ्रेंचाइजीज को. देन डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन रिलेशनशिप भी हो सकते हैं, एग्रीमेंट फॉर सेलिंग अनदर कंपनी प्रोडक्ट्स. तो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन और सेल्स के जो होते हैं वो भी बिजनेस अरेंजमेंट है, बट इट इज नॉट अ सेपरेट एंटिटी. Business trust, legal arrangement where trustees manage the assets for beneficiaries to in similar some respect to corporation. तो trustees भी किसी और का किसी और का asset manage करते हैं. It also sort of runs like a company, but it is not a separate legal entity. So in conclusion,
So,
yeah.
just a question. तो एग्जाम में क्वेश्चन जो है वो स्पेसिफिकली ये पर्टिकुलर जो कैटेगरीज हैं इन पे भी डिपेंडेंट हो सकता है क्या, कि सिर्फ जॉइंट वेंचर
No.
रिलेटेड ही क्वेश्चन आ गया?
नो नो नो, यहाँ से क्वेश्चन नहीं आएगा. मे भी आपको क्वेश्चन में ये वर्ड ऐसा खुद के आ सकता है वहां पे, बट उसके ऊपर क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछेंगे, बिकॉज इफ यू सी ओवरऑल सिलेबस दैट वाई वी वेंट थ्रू, राइट? तो वहां पे कहीं पे भी आपको जॉइंट वेंचर का, स्ट्रेटेजिक अलायंस का कोई भी इंफॉर्मेशन है क्या सिलेबस में? नहीं ना. ओनली दिस इज फॉर इंट्रोडक्शन. अदर मेथड्स ऑफ कैरिंग ऑन बिजनेस क्या क्या है करके आपके नॉलेज के लिए उन्होंने फर्स्ट चैप्टर में दिया, बट उसकी ड्यूटीज, रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज, लायबिलिटीज वगैरह नहीं
ओके.
आती. So the choice of business structure plays a crucial role in determining the legal and financial responsibilities of the owners. The sole proprietorship offers simplicity, partnership provides shared management, and corporations ensure limited liability and perpetual existence. Alternative forms like joint ventures, strategic alliances, and public trusts cater to specific business needs. Understanding this structure is essential for effectively navigating the legal and operational aspects of business organization. So this comes to an end of chapter 1. I'll send you notes also today. You can print it out and refer to that. So this notes is 101 pages and it has material till, let me see, topic of I've also added potential questions, that may come in the exam. So it will help us.
And these
Dividends.
sections that you have added in the notes जो कि सिलेबस में भी कहीं पे मेंशन थे ना सेक्शन सारे, इसका
Yeah.
कोई अलग से एक्ट भी रखना पड़ेगा क्या?
No, no, not like criminal code. You don't have to keep. आपको नोट्स में जितना मटेरियल है उतना काफी है, बट in case if you want, while you're doing the preparation, it's better to download OBCA Act and CBCA Act.
ठीक.
Okay. Yeah. Characteristics of shares तक यहीं पे है, तो I'll send you this, and कोई amendment है तो I'll send you. So what you do is अभी soft copy में refer करो. You don't have to print it out right away. Okay. And I'll let you know, because थोड़ा और changes जो भी करना है that will do, and I'll confirm for the printing. ठीक है, अभी आप soft copy में refer कर सकते हैं. So
ठीक
I'll
है.
see you in the next class. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.